phase one is
We're
over.
Done. Oh, phase one is over. Play-ins are done, and that was the appetizer, Arda. That's the appetizer to the meal. That was, you got a nice salad in, you got some appetizers, a bit of onion rings, but now we're getting to the real meat and potatoes. We're bringing the steak in now. This is where the real tournament starts and where the real action begins. Like, right when we saw the 4 groups, the A, B, C, D, fully complete, the 16 teams left for competing, vying for the Summoners Cup, now it feels real. This feels like, no offense to the teams that have been eliminated, no offense to the 6 teams that bounced out in the play-in stage, but everyone knows that this is the main event. This is what you work towards. This is what everything you do for the entire year builds up to, is this stage of the tournament. This is where everything begins, and I cannot tell you I'm so excited. I'm so excited to dive into these groups. I'm so excited to talk about everything. This is, I would say personally, the most stacked top 6 team we've ever had. I don't think there's a bad group in the bunch. Every group looks like it's going to be competitive in some way or form. Mm-hmm. It's a good one, Arda. We're going to have a lot of fun discussing these groups because I think we got the most balanced groups possible.
We will spend a lot of time on this program discussing all the groups, and you're seeing the groups on your screen here. But what we're going to do first is we're going to tell you exactly how we got to this point, because as we did mention, the play-ins are over. And I think, at least in terms of results today, as much as I have been banging that Turkish drum all along, I think that we both can agree that the stronger teams definitely won. And on paper, at least, the right team advanced to groups. Happy trails to Supermassive. It was a lot of fun being on your bandwagon. I'm sure there's a lot of future success coming to, in particular, individuals, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later at some other time. But we got to focus right now on the 2 teams that did advance. First of all, Unicorns of Love. Tyler, speaking of banging the drum, you have been singling out this team as one to watch, and they delivered.
Let's go back to the power ranking show, Arda. Like, if you weren't here for a power ranking show, I was adamant that Unicorns of Love should be ranked higher than almost every single wildcard region team, and I thought they should be ranked above the Pacific teams. I thought Unicorns of Love are a real contender. I've banged on the drum before they even stepped foot in Shanghai that they are a real team, that they are mechanically gifted players 1 to 5, and they play a style that puts people on the back foot. They're not always clean, as they have shown, but they never let the other team breathe, and they create an atmosphere that's uncomfortable for other teams. Compare that to teams like V3, who played very timid and maybe played a bit more intelligently, but they were very easy to counter, especially when you look at the individual skill between players on V3 and people on LGD, where Unicorns of Love don't only have the mechanical individual talent, but they have a creativity to them and a confidence to them that has them a step above. And today, I think it was Supermassive, and Supermassive is an amazing team on 5-on-5 team fights. They are a team throughout the playing stage who showed us they're going to pick the Wombo combo. They're going to pick the Hecarim and the Galio and the chain ultimate stage, where when all ultimates are up, they are a team that knows how to push the go button and how to chain those ultimates correctly. They are an amazing 5-on-5 team fighting team. Unicorns of Love are a skirmishing god team. They are a team that likes to play dirty, and they like to fight often, early, late, mid. It doesn't matter. They love to fight. So when you have a team like Supermassive who wants to get into the right positions, the right state of time to have these, perfectly turned out and blueprinted and penciled out team fights, versus a team that's just going to push them and make them not have that ability to lean back and just kind of pick and choose when they want to fight. It just wasn't there for Supermassive. We saw some good moments from them, and when they were able to execute those 5-on-5 team fights, we saw that they could win. But it was Unicorns of Love always pushing the tempo. When those ultimates were on cooldown for Supermassive, that's when Unicorns of Love were pushing them. When they were, they were 4-man diving bot lane, or they were fighting through the jungle, because it doesn't matter if they have no ults, all ults up. It doesn't matter if they have half health, full health, 2 items, 3 items. The Unicorns of Love always believe that they can win a fight. No matter what the odds are, they are confident enough to win. And I've said this throughout the entire playing stage. I love how disrespectful they are to their opponents. Where, be it No Man's, just kind of clowning on Bolulu, who is a more of an enabler, more of a utility role player on Supermassive, and just crushing him in lane and kind of just playing around with him on the map. They're a team that isn't scared of anyone. And going into groups, especially the group they got drawn into, they're going to have that no fear attitude if they want to have any chance of going a bit farther.
Save the group talk for a little bit later, of course. Unicorns of Love, just to add a little bit more flavor here. Of course, you heard it on the broadcast. They're the first CIS team to make groups since 2016, and Unicorns of Love have their own redemption story. They lost to Splice in a best-of-5 last year that prevented them from qualifying to the group stage, so a little bit of redemption there. And Unicorns of Love, according to our fantasy app, were picked 87% of the time to advance. So a lot of people, the thousands that are playing in our ESPN League of Legends predictor, had a lot of faith in Unicorns of Love. And speaking of the League of Legends predictor, you can join us for free. You can invite your friends. You can create your own group. You can battle it out and compare points. I'm not doing so well. Tyler's doing pretty good. Remember, it's free to play. And it's ESPN.com/League of Legends Predictor. Or if you have the ESPN Fantasy app, just click on the trophy tab and you will see you can make picks for every single round all the way to the final. It's free every step of the way. And you can continue to pick Unicorns of Love if you want, if you believe in them, as we talk about the groups later on in the show. But to tie a bow on Unicorns of Love, here are some. It's funny that you mentioned their swagger. Like every time you mention them and their swagger and their pompous attitude or their style of play, it reminds me of Ric Flair. Like I just think of a Ric Flair promo, like woo, like they're strutting on the Summoner's Rift and they're just like dropping elbows and setting up for the figure four. Like they have that swagger about them, and I love that.
Yeah, it's a thumb nose to the establishment, right? Where a lot of these teams play to get moral victories, where it's a hip hip hooray, I went to play-ins and I failed. Where Unicorns of Love came to not take part, but as I've said on Twitter before, they came here to take over, Arda. They came here to take over, and the first step of that takeover has been they've checked it off, and now they're on to the group stage. So I will see. It's gonna be a much tougher test. I don't think No Man's is going to be able to have clown his opponents as much when we talk about what mid laners he's going to be facing in the group stage. But I am bullish on this team. I've been a fan of them since the beginning, and we'll talk about that more soon.
Interview with Sheepy, by the way, who was the coach of Unicorns of Love. Tyler was able to conduct it after that interview. It is available at ESPN.com or on our YouTube channel /ESPN Esports. Producer Tish in my ear, do we have a clip for that? Okay, so we're going to move on. You can find that full interview over at youtube.com/ESPN Esports. Let's move on over to LGD Gaming. Another sweep, another impressive one. They didn't look dominant in all 3 games, Tyler, but still the result is the same. Oh, you're yawning. What's going on there? Are you tired, bro?
Oh, man. I changed my sleep schedule, but, man, that game, game 2 was exciting. I will give it that for maybe all the wrong reasons, but we don't have to linger on this too much. I said this yesterday. Do you believe in miracles? Do you believe that one of the smallest regions with, I believe, over 200,000 registered summoners, almost no esports infrastructure, no $1 million contracts being handed out in Oceania versus a Titanic franchise in LGD who've been around for decades? It was really David versus Goliath, and I wanted to believe in miracles, Arda, but last night in Shanghai, there was no miracles to be had. Almost a game 2 victory that Legacy should have won. They got a bit too overeager. Should have played more safe. They were on Mountain Soul Point. They were ready to get Mountain Soul. They had Baron. They could have let the Winions themselves do the work for them, get that soul, clean up a game that should have been very simplified at that point. But a team that loves to team fight, who really believed in their team fighting over everything else, that kind of got the best of them. And LGD, for all the smack I've talked about them on this show for the last week, they showed up. They were impressive. They knew what they had to do to take care of business, and game 2 aside, they took care of business. And we now go into a group, like I said, with Unicorns of Love. The competition gets much more high, and it's a lot better of competition. But I think LGD getting these lumps is a good thing. If LGD came into groups and didn't have this playing experience, and they played like they did at the beginning of the group stage or the beginning of play-ins, they would have gone 0-6 and been embarrassed. They would have fallen out completely. But I think coming in, learning the meta, learning what's going on, kind of feeling out the competition, and then finally turning it on with 7 straight victories going into the group stage. I'm not saying they're going to get into the quarterfinals, but they're not a pushover. This team is not a pushover. There's too many good players on the team. I still think their bottom lane, especially Kramer, a bit of a question mark. I don't know how he's going to fare in the upcoming group, but that's another discussion to be had. So congrats LGD and Legacy. Good try. Very proud of Oceana. This was the best they've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe next year, I think. Hopefully, unless, there's a very good chance that this team just gets ransacked in the offseason and we see 4 or 5 of these players on, LCS Academy. So
or all of them on 100 Thieves. Somehow Papa Smithy gets around the only 2 players from outside of NA. He just brings an all Australian super team together.
Yeah, I mean, they're very good players, especially Rays. Rays showed that he could stand up to Kramer. He was beating Kramer in the laning phase, and he was putting a lot of pressure. And in those team fights, he was excellent. Outside of Game 3, where he kind of missed the mark, but I can't really blame him too much. It was 0-2. He's a young player, but Oceana, respectable finish. They were not the embarrassment of the tournament as they have been in previous iterations. And hopefully this, kickstarts maybe Oceana League of Legends a bit more sponsorship, a little bit more infrastructure, more payment into these guys' hands, so they don't either have to retire or they have to go to North America. So Oceana is a tough place to play League of Legends, but they did all their countrymen and countrywomen proud.
Who's your player of the day?